Enchash Nenactush and Kakushan, Lilwa Ulkan, Statnium Kan, Uchamuch, Shemashquachich Tanina Williams. Today I'm going to talk about the land, but I want to remind you of a few things. But first, we'll start off with a prayer. Great Creator, thank you for the land. The land gives so much all the time. The land gives us plenty. There's berries, there's animals, there's bugs, there's salmon, there's fish, there's birds in the air, the mountains, the trees, the little bunny rabbits. The land gave us our language. Thank you, great Creator, for our language. Thank you for the land that taught us so much, gave us so much teachings, and that we know that you are so generous. You're so generous to your creation. Thank you, great Creator. And this much. And remember, even though I'm not with you in person, you can still be part of this act of saying, as you're learning, that you're learning, So you say, great Creator, clear my mind so that my mind is ready to learn. Help my heart to be ready to learn. Help my body to be ready to learn. Help my spirit be ready to learn. Be with me, great Creator, so that I'll be ready to learn, but also ready to teach what I know, what I've learned, and teach what I share, or teach what I know, right? And we'll go back to these little principles and remember what that means for us. Kamuchacha, acknowledging the felt energy, indicating group attunement and the emergence of a common group purpose. Kechkech, each person being responsible for their own and others' learning, always seeking learning opportunities. Kakitla, seeking space of stillness and quietness amidst our busyness and our quest for knowledge. Chal, valuing our own expertise and considering how it helps the entire community beyond ourselves. Hualep, recognizing the need to sometimes be in a place of dissonance and uncertainty, heightened awareness so as to be open to new learning. Amhaka, encouraging each of us to do the best we can at each task given to us. I really like that one. Amhaka. What it's saying is, as long as you're doing your best, that's good. Sometimes we think we have to be perfect at something we're just now learning. But we don't. We just have to try our best and be proud of what that best is, because the more you learn it, your best is going to get better, right? I love that. So I want to talk about the land and how those principles, work out onto the land. And I think about all of our songs and what that looks like and feels like. You can hear my little dog snoring. She gets relaxed with the sage. But I wanna sing the groundhog song. because that little creature, you know, lives in a little hole, and it lives on the land and is part of the land, just like we are. And we honor it with a dance and a song, right? Hena, hey, oh, oh. Hena, hey, oh, nena. 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 I love that song. I love dancing it because you get to be a groundhog, you know? I love being a groundhog. I have a favorite elder. When she dances it, she's like the happiest groundhog. And you could see her transform into this groundhog. And she's dancing. And she's just loving it. And I just love seeing her dance. It tickles me so much. You know, and dancing and singing and knowing our principles of learning, our ways, brings us happiness, brings us peace, brings us joy, brings us, this is who we are. This is our way. This is how all creation is connected. And it just makes me feel so excited. And I think about this story. It's my favorite story. I always say that about all the stories I tell. But this story is my good cousin Marietta Wells' story. And it goes like this. She was struggling in her life. Well, not herself personally, but making a decision. And her friend says to her, let's go camping. I don't know if it was a guy or a girl, but it was a friend. Sometimes I say he or something, but I don't even know. But they say, let's go camping to the hot springs. Just to separate yourself from this place, then maybe you'll be able to make a really good decision. And she agrees. So they pack up the truck and they drive out to the hot springs and set up camp. I'm sure they must have enjoyed the hot springs, you know, had dinner and then visited till late, and then they went to bed, and she couldn't sleep because she was really thinking about this decision she needed to make. And the sun starts to peek over, right? So it gets light out, and she, you know, gets her, shoes on and gets her toothbrush and towel and things she needs to clean up, and walks towards the river, and she finds this perfect rock to sit on. She sits down, and she's just enjoying, the peace and the sound of the river. And all of a sudden she hears this thump, 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 thump. Oh, what is that? She's listening. Thump, 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 thump. She gets up and she walks towards it, and she stops. Thump, 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 thump. And she walks towards it, and she looks around this tree, and it's these 5 little grouse chicks. 5 little grouse chicks, they're so cute. And she watches them, and 2 of them flutter up on top of this huckleberry bush, and they start to bounce. Bounce, 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 bounce. And all these huckleberries start to fall. That's the thump, 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 thump. And they flutter down, and they all eat together, and they move to the next bush. And then 2 other grouse chicks flutter up to the top, and they get on branches and they bounce, 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 bounce. Sure enough, thump, 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 thump. And they flutter down, they look at each other, and they eat the huckleberries, and they move to the next bush. And they do the same thing. 2 different grouse chicks go up, and they're bounce, 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 thump, 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 thump. They flutter down, and they look at each other, and they all eat together. And then they get to the 4th bush. And 2 different grouse chicks flutter up to the top, and they bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce. And nothing happens. And that's because there is a dead branch underneath the bush, and it's wedged under there, so it won't move, right? So they flutter down and they look at it and they, oh. So then 3 of them flutter up. You know, you see their little wings flutter. And then they look at each other and they look at their position, and then they start to bounce and nothing happens. So the 4th one flutters up there and they maneuver around and they look at each other's spots and they bounce, 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 and they're bouncing away, and then this branch gives way, and sure enough, thump, 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 all these little huckleberries, you know, fall to the ground, and they flutter down, and they all look at each other, and they do a little hop and a skip and a jump, and then they all eat the huckleberries, and they go to the next bush. And I think about that. I love that story. You know, they worked really hard together, and they came up with a problem, and they came up with a solution, and then they accomplished their goal, and they ate some good huckleberries, and they celebrated. You know, when we do this hard work, we need to celebrate. When we work hard together, even if it's the smallest accomplishment, like I always think, you know, we go throughout our whole day, you know, and we forget to celebrate the small stuff. We always remember to celebrate the big stuff. But even if we do something really well, we need to celebrate. You know, it's like simplest thing is remembering to pick up bananas. You know, at the grocery store could be a celebration because, you know, it's one of those things, it's one item, right? But it's important. So I think about that story and what does that mean? You know, being on the land, seeing these lessons worked out in little cute creatures like the grouse chicks, and how they work together, and how they are managing to eat really well because they're working together. So thank you so much, and I think that's one of the dear stories to my heart. And I love picking berries. It's my favorite. Just to be out in the woods, eating and picking berries, and then picking berries to eat for another day. And, you know, our language comes from the land, right? And that speaks volumes about how connected we are to this place. Thank you.